Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing the full off-season recap for the Indianapolis Colts. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about all their departures, their new acquisitions, and then too, at the end of the video, we're going to be breaking down their 2024 schedule and giving our record prediction and letting you know how we think the Colts are going to do this season. So be sure to stay tuned for the entire episode. Before we get into it, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Tracy Take, get notified, and ring that bell to get notified when new videos come out. We're doing a full offseason recap for all 32 NFL teams with one video coming out Monday through Friday, starting at coming out at 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to see how the other AFC South teams did this offseason and what their schedules look like, be sure to ring that bell to get notified when videos are released. So Ryan, let's pull this up here. These are the 2023 offensive defensive team rankings as well. Colts ended up going 9-8 and fell just short, fortunately, of making the playoffs. And I think, too, when I look at the stats here, I'll start on the offensive side of the ball. If I had to predict what a Gardner Minshew offense would look like, I would think it would be these numbers right here. I mean, almost the epitome of just an average offense.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially on the rushing side of things, Jonathan Taylor was hurt for a very large majority of the year. You feel like teams would be like sucked up in the box against Gardner Minshew, who struggles to push the ball down the field very well. I just think it was a very good job by Shane Steichen.
Yeah, and I don't want to take anything away from Gardner Minshew. I thought Gardner Minshew had a great year. I think all the money he's getting from Las Vegas totally deserved. And so I just think it just kind of goes to like that's just going to be his limitation. Like he won't make too many mistakes, but he's not going to have that big booming play, so to say. Yeah. I think if we broke down the average, I think Gardner Minshew averaged probably like 200 passing yards, 220 passing yards a game, which is just about average. You know what I mean? And so when I look at that offensively as well, and I think with an Anthony Richardson offense, the numbers might be bigger, but there might be more volatile. So that's what I'm going to be curious about. There might be some more turnovers, potentially maybe a little more sacks allowed, just because maybe if he's trying to work, trying to extend the play, if it doesn't work out. But at the same time, though, too, I think rushing numbers are going to go up. I think passing numbers are going to go up because he's got the cannon, going to be able to open up the field more. So it's going to be interesting to see how he develops this season. I think defensively, I kind of want to shift, and that's where I think looking at these numbers and then kind of looking at the draft, it's like they're trying to improve a little bit more on the defensive. I think just everything on the defensive side of the ball. I think the reason why the passing numbers were down were because of how good their pass rush was, because they had so many sacks this year. But at the same time, though, too, the reason why the rushing numbers were up is that they're a little bit of a smaller, more quicker defensive line as well. Do you kind of have that same thought when it comes to this Colts defense?
Yeah, that secondary was young and inexperienced. Kenny Moore, I think, was out for a majority of the year as well. He missed some time with injury, and he's one of their more experienced slot corners. Juju Brents was the guy on the outside, and he was a rookie. They spent a few draft picks in 2023 on that secondary other than him as well. Some of the guys didn't make the team, and so that was just, to me, a problem on the back end. And then this, like you said, this front seven, smaller and faster. And I think we really saw that kind of as the season wore on. I think this team just slowly got a little bit worse and worse against the run. We were at the Christmas Eve game against the Falcons. And the Falcons are a very good running team, but the Falcons blew the Colts off the ball as that game got really even into like the second quarter. The Falcons just controlled the line of scrimmage, and then that was pretty much it. So I definitely think adding some more power on that defensive front was a priority for them. And so I like some of the moves that they made.
We'll get into that here in a second.
We'll get into it a little bit later.
Let's talk a little bit, I think, about the people that left and some of the guys are free agents. And when looking at this, we already mentioned Gardner Minshew. Other than that, though, nobody else really that's sticking out. Zach Moss had the second highest percentage of play snap by people who moved on, but you guys had Jonathan Taylor, and then also too, I'm pretty sure they re-signed Trey Sermon as well. So and so that's replacing his performance right there. Everybody else easily replaceable, especially too Isaiah McKenzie, KJ Hamler. Yeah. I mean, you just got A.D. Mitchell, so now you have your four receivers. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. A.D. Mitchell, and then Alec Pierce as well. And we'll get into the depth chart here later. Then free agents-wise, same thing. I actually don't think, if I look at it, all the free agents according to Over the Cap, had 0% snap
All the guys that are
plays.
still free
So
agents.
yeah, so nothing really too much. I think to really kind of even talk deeper on, in my opinion, outside we already touched on Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, you already replaced Gardner Minshew because you end up getting Joe Flacco from Cleveland, and so then they did end up signing Raekwon Davis as well. If there's people that we missed, also because we were trying to double check, but we're getting these numbers from Over the Cap and these sites from Over the Cap. So if there's anybody that we missed, please feel free. But just in general, though, everybody that was lost, pretty much inconsequential. And everybody that they gained replaced the few people that they lost.
And one of the things that we didn't list out was who they re-signed. And so I'm just going to run through a few names here. DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore, Taven Bryan, Michael Pittman Jr., Zaire Franklin, Tyquan Lewis, Julian Blackmon, Ronnie Harrison, Trey Sermon. Those are 10 guys that played a very significant amount of snaps for them, or should have, barring injury, that they re-signed. And so that is where a lot of their offseason money went, why they only had 2 free agent signings. So
yeah, this is almost the exact same team as last year, and so and that's right.
Yeah.
Then you look at the draft picks. I think we talked about it on a draft video. I really did like the draft. I think it was above average, but I like the Leatu Latu pick. A.D. Mitchell, I think was great value. Matt Conclaves, really liked him. Funny video too of him getting drafted and talking to the GM. I really like that video. It's very wholesome. I think they got good value as well. Really threw everything through the kitchen sink at the secondary in day 3. Again, 2 safeties and then the corner there. So that's why kind of when moving on, then now I would say to their depth chart, storyline to me is going to be Anthony Richardson. I mean, that's the storyline to me. You know, essentially the offensive line is pretty much the same. I mean, maybe there's going to be some offensive line battles here where you get Matt Conclaves as well. And so there's even a couple other guys, Tanner Bortolini, who I think was classified as a center, but they have him as a guard here. So interior offensive lineman, just creating some more competition. Mm-hmm. But receiving room, I think is set. Running back room, obviously you got Jonathan Taylor is set. He see if he stays healthy barring injury. So it's just going to be Anthony Richardson. And was that the correct pick 2 years ago?
Yeah, and that to me, like, this offense, if he is healthy, is going to be really good. We saw some flashes last year. The one thing is, I'm a little nervous with shoulder surgery specifically. I think you look at guys that have had that in the past, Cam Newton specifically, in the similar like freak athlete mold, and also Cam Newton had multiple shoulder surgeries, but that ended up being his demise. He could no longer throw the ball properly at the end of his career. So I just want to keep an eye out on Anthony Richardson just in his mobility and throwing motion. But all in all, that is the storyline for them. I am interested in the A.D. Mitchell storyline. I mean, 10 receivers were drafted before him, and I thought he realistically would be wide receiver 5 or 6. I thought he would be right up there. I like, you had the big 3 in Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. I thought Brian Thomas Jr. was clearly better. And then after that, like, you really could make a case for any of the guys left to be at that 5th spot. So,
so I do agree with you there, especially then too, because he's going to be slotted in right now. He's going to be the first string as well over Alec Pierce. He's going to have every opportunity to have that. So, and I think he is better than Alec Pierce. So I agree with you there. Just his overall development, something the Colts you've got to go and do. If he falls to 52nd there, if he doesn't pan out, don't fault them at all. I think a lot of people at that spot would have taken him there. And so I think then as well, similar, I would say as the offensive side, but on the defensive side as well. I think the thing to me, just kind of looking at seeing how the secondary does shape up, and can this young defensive group take those leaps forward? I mean, Juju Brents was last year was a rookie. Julian Blackmon's coming into his 5th year in the league, and I would say
he just got re-signed.
He just got re-signed, and so congrats to him. And so, but can this young secondary group just kind of keep making those strides forward, and so see if there's any secondary battles, any late guys that make improvements, any guys that they drafted in day 3. And that's where I think it's going to be interesting to see in that battle. But in the front 7 shouldn't be too much different. outside of just seeing how Laiatu Latu develops.
Yeah, and that is interesting there. I thought that they would either go corner in the first round or maybe get like a Byron Murphy or like a Jersey Newton type, a little bit of a meteor defensive tackle to maybe shore up some of those running deficiencies that we saw in the numbers at the beginning of this video. But all in all, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this defense does. They're betting, I guess, more on the progression and improvements of guys in the secondary rather than uh, actually adding better players there. Which again, when you have a young secondary, you want those guys to develop and improve. So
Well, I also think too that combined with the amount of guys that were free agents that they had to resign, like
yeah,
if we go back on that list, as what you're talking about, I mean Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., you're going to have to resign those guys.
yeah,
Julian Blackman, DeForest Buckner, you have to resign those guys,
yeah,
and so Grover Stewart, Daryl Baker Jr. as well. Like all those guys, you're going to need to resign just
yeah,
because of what they brought to the team as well. Especially those first 4 or 5 guys that I mentioned,
yeah,
and so I think that like you kind of roll with it, and also then too with how good that defense front seven was at getting after the quarterback. If that young secondary can keep developing and can help even like be more lockdown corners, I think the sack numbers could still go up as well. I think their passing yards that they allow go down just because of if they're getting more effective. It's just going to be if they can kind of develop a run defense and help contain the run a little bit more, make be less vulnerable there against more run heavy teams.
yeah,
So that's going to be something, but I could see this defense keep improving as well, especially in those categories.
yeah. But you kind of said it. 2023, 2024, not a very different team. Just some couple new faces through free agency and some rookies. So let's get into their 2024 schedule here. Starting off here with the first 6 games, a pretty tough schedule. You got 3 division matchups in weeks 1 and 5 and 6 with Green Bay, Chicago, and Pittsburgh. Not any games that I think that they can't win, uh, but not any games that I think are locks, right?
Yeah, I think Houston's going to be. I mean, it's the first game of the season.
Yeah,
That's going to be a very fascinating game to watch. But I think just with the momentum of Houston, then you have that D'Amico Ryan's defense that was really clicking. I think the D'Amico Ryan's defense got even. I like how I say D'Amico Ryan's defense. I think the Texas defense got even better. D'Amico Ryan's just doing a phenomenal job down
yeah,
there. And so, but I think they got even better, especially the two. So playing them week 1, going up against Anthony Richardson, coming off surgery, who has only played in a couple of NFL games. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch, see how they develop. They go in at Green Bay. If Green Bay also continues to develop, which they were one of the youngest teams in the league last year, I think they can
oh yeah,
only keep developing on the road. I think that's going to be really tough as well. And Chicago, who knows with Chicago, man? I have no
yeah,
idea what Chicago is going to be like. And like on paper, they should be really good defensively. Like they kept improving last year and turned out to have one of the better defenses by the end of the season. But offensively, with all the moves that they made, on paper they should be absolute studs. So I agree with you. I think those first 3 games are going to be tough, but then they
yeah,
could maybe make up a couple of games with those next 3 games. I think if they go 3-3 during that stretch, I think that's a reasonable.
yeah.
I think they'd be happy with that stretch.
Yeah, no, for sure. So moving on to the second column here, starting off a couple tough games. You got Miami, that high flying offense in that dome, I think is going to be tough to defend, especially with how this defense performed last year. Then go to Houston, another tough place to play with just how good they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they'll get a little bit of a break in week 9, but then 2 tough games right after that: Buffalo at New York, and then Detroit as well. And then to close it off here before they hit the week 14 bye, they have to go to New England. Not a tough game, but that game last year was one of the worst football games I think I've ever seen. So hopefully it is a better product than that.
Yeah, I think as fans we just want to watch a good game during that. So, but
Yeah.
here, yeah, I think there's a couple games like I think they match up well against Miami. It's still
Oh,
gonna be
see,
a
I
tough
think the
game.
opposite. I think Miami, especially in Indy, it's a fast track. That's like this secondary was a pretty big weakness last
Yeah,
year.
but I think that they will be. I think they'll be more consistent. I think yeah,
Yeah,
Miami's gonna have the explosive plays, but I think with how much Miami lost defensively, I think that
That's true.
they can be more balanced against them than Miami. I think Miami's going to have a tough time. But that also be too though with how fast that defensive line is for the Colts. I think they'll
That's
be able
true.
to get
Yeah.
after it, unless if Miami fix their offensive line system or just weaknesses. I think the Colts can get after Tua. They'll really have to get the ball out quickly for Tua here. And so now that I say all that, it's going to be a tough game still, because of your points exactly with how quick they are.
Yeah.
But I think too as well, if they come through 500 during that stretch, I still think that they're going to be in the wild card hunt at minimum here. And then they have kind of going into those last couple of weeks at Denver, Tennessee, at the Giants, and then home against Jacksonville. Luckily, that's home for them against Jacksonville because I think they've lost in Jacksonville for the past decade now, 11 years or something like that.
Yeah,
it's been absolutely ridiculous.
They do not win in Jacksonville.
Yeah. So I think those are very winnable 4-game stretch, especially coming off that Week 14 bye. So that's where I think they can maybe make their hay. It's going to be if they can be hovering around 500, slightly above 500. It's just going to be really tough to tell, just because I think the biggest X factor for me, it's as I think about the schedule, then kind of going on to my record predictions as well, is just how Anthony Richardson's going to develop. So that's what I think on paper I think the team as a whole, they can just be consistent. I think they can be above 500. I don't know if they'll win the division. 10-7, I think, is definitely right there in the wild card hunt, just with how good all these AFC teams are. They're going to be beating each other, just like how they were doing last year. And so and also too, this team was one play away from making the playoffs last year and winning the AFC South. It was the correct screenplay, but unfortunately it was just a little bit of a low throw because of a good defensive rush, and the guy just unfortunately the running back just dropped it. So I can see 10-7, but I can also see your record as well.
Yeah, 8-9. I just think you look at the AFC; it's really tough. This is a hard thing to, I think, view as an AFC fan, but you have, to me, there's the Chiefs, and then everybody else. And the Chiefs, I think, are the only team that are really going to be that much better because Patrick Mahomes is just that much better than everybody in the NFL at the moment, not just the AFC. But then you have that top tier teams, but that are still beatable, like the Bills. I think the Dolphins are in that group as well. The Texans are in that group too, and so they have a tough schedule. They're in a tough division. They're playing the AFC East, which is also a tough division. I think a lot of their games are just coin flip games. They're whoever is at home is going to be favored by 3 points because that is what it usually that's what you get for being at home is 3 points. A lot of these teams I think are very evenly matched, and I think when you're a team like the Colts that has questions at the quarterback position, that does a good job of scheming up offensive plays, that it has a average defense. Maybe this defense improves a little bit. And I think you end up at 8-9, kind of how they were, I think, last year. So
yeah.
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, and I will say, I do think Anthony Richardson will come back and play the majority, if not all, of the season. I hope he does. To me, 8-9 and 10-7 is going to be totally dependent on how well Anthony Richardson plays and how well he can actually protect himself.
Yeah, because that's it's as we kind of been the theme of this video is the Colts team is relatively the same from last year.
Yeah,
and I think the biggest difference is who their backup quarterback is. So they changed from Gardner Minshew to Joe Flacco, and that's really just the biggest difference. And so if Richardson can come out and be the 4th overall pick that we all think he can be, and we're all just absolutely mesmerized with his performance when it came to the combine last year, I think 10-7 might be on the low end. Potential that they could be 11-6 and 12-5. But to your point, if he's inconsistent, if there's still that development, if maybe he's battling some injuries, and then Joe Flacco doesn't, he's not the guy. That was a genie in a bottle type situation in Cleveland. 8-9 might be on the high end. So it's just going to be interesting to see how the team develops. But I say that though, it just at that point, if Joe Flacco does come in, I think it's going to be something similar to what we saw with Gardner Minshew. I think it's going to be a little bit more controlled. That being said, too, I think Joe Flacco
Yeah.
threw a lot of picks during his time, during his 7 games.
Yeah.
But he was slinging it everywhere. But I think it will be more controlled, and just because he has that veteran experience, like that really is just it. So
Yeah.
it's
And
gonna
I
be
think that
fascinating to see. Oh God.
I think that'll be good for Anthony Richardson to kind of learn off of. Just, hey, like when you see this, like they're trying to bait you into this throw, so just think about that. Like just that
That
leader
development. Yeah.
guidance, like in development from a guy that's won Super Bowls and been through a lot of different offenses, I think is going to be essential for Anthony Richardson and this Colts team as they move
Yeah.
forward. So, but let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Indianapolis Colts offseason. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we will see you guys.